All right. So speaking of music, uh this transition got me real tricky, boy. But it's about music, right? So
Yeah.
let me make
Off
a
the transition.
transition to yes, to one of the most controversial movies of 2019, and yeah,
Right.
easily one of the most controversial documentaries of the 2010s. And yeah, we in
Yeah, and it's
2019.
it's
Let's look at that.
it's it was one of the most controversial subjects in the last, well, for the better part of what, 20, 30 years now?
Yeah, well, 30 years, 30 years. Yeah, 'cause remember
Yeah.
this is from since the 80s. Of
Well,
course,
about
we're
90,
talking
yeah.
about yeah, of course, we're talking about Leaving Neverland. This is directed and produced by a British filmmaker by the name of Dan Reed.
Right.
This premiered on HBO March 3rd and the 4th. It was like a two-part documentary, so each part is
Right.
2 hours. And
Right.
this essentially involves two men, Wade Robson, who is
Right.
a well-known dance choreographer, from well born in Australia actually, and now he lives in the States. And we have James Safechuck,
Right.
uh, who um, basically he was just right. So basically he was just well it started off he was just a kid who ended up being in a commercial. A Pepsi
Right.
commercial for featuring Michael Jackson. And by the way, that commercial is part creepy and part silly at the same time, but it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
so
yeah.
80s. But everything
Yeah.
about it is just 80s. The style of
Right.
it, the kind of whimsical, sort of John Williams kind of music, and then how it just ends with the opening riff for bad that ding, 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 ding,
Yeah.
ding. But I
Yeah.
was just laughing at just how dumb it was.
Yeah,
But
it's a
at the
weird.
80s, it was just like, yeah, this is the kind of thing you would see in
It's
the 80s,
Michael
huh?
D. He's also.
You know, basically it's
Yeah.
just James in this in the not the waiting room in
No,
the
it's like a thing in a jacket room, and he's wearing his clothes, and then Michael
yeah.
catch him with
I was
something.
like, are you looking for me? And then he had ding,
Yeah,
ding,
or something like that. Yeah, I forget what
that was so funny. But anyway, so it's about well these two men, but they're more or less reflecting on when they were kids,
Right.
when they how they idolized Michael Jackson, and this is not so much, um, not so much in the thriller era, but more in the bad era, right? The moment where it
Right.
was like his career just skyrocketed even more. You know what I mean? And well, basically both men, well, both boys, I would say, in different circumstances, were invited by Michael to his Neverland Ranch, right?
Right.
And they spent a lot of time with him. And as the rumors, as we have known as we were growing up, Michael Jackson touching on boys and all that kind of stuff. It's basically
Right.
these two guys coming and saying, well, yeah, it did happen. And they go into very, very graphic detail about the things that MJ did with them, the sexual things that he did. But
Right.
what makes it
Sexual
even,
stuff. Because
yeah, very, very, very disturbing stuff, by the way. But what makes it even weirder, is not just the homosexual slant on it, and not just the fact that yes, it is a grown man who, yes, he always felt lonely and he always felt this affinity with little kids, but
right,
him
right,
kind
right.
of being emotionally and sexually attached to little boys. But from Wade and James' perspective, they were talking about, well, they kind of grew to love him, like really genuinely love him. So later on, when all these allegations start springing up, like in the 90s and 2000s, they
Right.
kept their mouths shut, because, like, well,
Well,
at a point in
they
time,
outright, yeah, they outright. Well, in the case of Wade, he perjured himself.
yes,
Um,
yes, yes,
effectively.
yeah.
This is in the second trial, if I remember correctly. Um,
All right, the one that where Corey Feldman and Macaulay Culkin came in to
right.
testify, right? Yeah, I remember that.
Right.
Right, that was in,
And
I think it was 2005 or something like that when that happened.
right. So
Right.
the big sticking point with this documentary is that it is one of the supposed defenders of Jackson all of a sudden switches his story.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. You're right because Weed,
Wade was
well, Weed,
on the
yeah,
defense.
that guy Weed, right? Because his career literally skyrocketed as a dancer. As soon as he came
Right.
to the states, right? Thanks to Michael in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
And his career literally blowing up. As he did choreography acts, did choreography, sorry, for acts like Britney Spears and NSYNC and
Yeah, yeah,
whatnot. You know,
yeah.
he was just like the strong defender for Michael. So it's kind of ironic, and they just show it in this timeline, this historical timeline, right after his death in 2009. And, it's so ironic that this documentary comes out less than 10 years after his death, right? Wow,
Is,
so many
is,
news, right?
is the whole 10th anniversary timing of it now. That's why
Yes,
everybody is
yes,
like, oh,
yes, exactly.
that,
Yeah, yeah.
that,
Um,
that.
and yeah, just basically, well, he did come out and confess about these things before on this news report,
In
this
2000,
news
yeah,
show. I can't remember what
right.
year it was. I think it was in the
It was,
early
it was,
2010s or
it
something
was
like that.
2013,
20 when?
13, I think,
Oh,
if I
2013.
remember.
Okay, okay. Right.
Right,
But yeah, essentially in a nutshell, it's these two guys confessing. You do see their wives kind of talking about how their lives were affected emotionally and psychologically because of that, right? You see from the perspective of their parents, especially, well, there's a lot of emphasis on weed, a little too much to the point where it kind of blurs, like James would be there at a point in time, and they'll just kind of suddenly shift to weed. And I always felt
right,
that there's always a lot of emphasis on weed. I almost forgot that
exactly. So,
James was being interviewed, right?
right,
Um,
right,
but there is this dark thing that's going on with Wade's family because more or less, well, his mom kind of pushed him to be up
right,
under Michael in the first place, and then she was the one who
right,
said, "Well, yes, let's leave our dad, who, sorry,
right. Fathers,
let's
yeah.
leave your
Father,
father, who more or less suffering from bipolar disorder. Let's leave him alone with
yeah,
your
yeah.
older brother, and let we go to the States and let we live
Yeah, there's a whole story.
the
I
high
just admit
life
it.
because it's Michael now. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Yeah,
it focuses a lot on just their family and their backstory, and that's why I had a problem with the documentary. Is that
yeah,
well, I'm gonna just get into the documentary and why yeah, I'm just gonna kind of straight up say it.
yeah.
Um,
Get off your chest.
yeah, the documentary is kind of bullshit. Like almost all of it is like nonsense, and the little that is actual new information, evidence wise, like from a hard evidence standpoint wise, um, is like you could easily poke holes in it. So here's the thing. My opinion about Michael Jackson growing up since the first and second trials was I was always kind of slightly against Michael, frankly.
Right.
Um, he was, and I kind of just fell into the normal media hype trap against him. He's also kind of a weird dude. Um,
And he always did
he,
weird things. Like,
well,
remember that infamous moment
no,
with him hanging
he,
his newborn
right,
over the ledge of the balcony?
right.
Remember that?
No, but he
Yeah.
always did, even in the 90s, he always had like tabloids, was always, and he himself made the mistake of feeding into that because from what I understand, he fed kind of false stories. Celebrities just do that now. They have this kind of push-pull relationship with the tabloids where they'll put out kind of BS stories themselves and their own publicists. Like if publicists don't want to be part of tabloids, they won't be part of tabloids. But other celebrities thrive on it, and Michael kind of did that a little bit. So that's why you get weird stuff like Bubbles the monkey
Yes.
and the Elephant Man Bones and Hyperbaric
Yes.
Chamber and weird shit like that, right? But a lot of that stuff is not what what it really is. It's just again tabloid hype. And I was like, well, the first time he get off, I was like, all right, whatever. He get off, O.J. Simpson get off at the same time, so people was like, well, he could still do thing. And then when the second time the situation came around, I was like, wait, all right, well, he guilty then because like it's twice now.
Yeah.
And then he get
I
off at
remember around that time. Sorry to cut you. I remember around that time was when his career decided to wean off. He was getting older.
that
Invincible
was
came out, and it was a kind of like critical disappointment. Well, commercial disappointment. Sorry. So it's not like we were hearing a lot of Michael then. So it's like, oh, right,
right,
Michael, who's probably just being all right, and yeah, that's where he married this new woman and all that kind of stuff. So it's
right.
like,
It was,
oh my
it
God,
was
he in trouble now. Okay, wow, let's focus on
right,
this. It's Michael, right?
exactly. And I remember he had a track with Jeezy, and it's like, okay, well, Jeezy kind of sound better than him. It's like, you more care about other artists at that point. And I was
Yeah.
one of those that just
What
kind of
was it? Was it the "You Rock My World" remix?
basically, yeah,
Yeah, I actually dug that remix though. But yeah,
yeah, that's
continue.
all right.
Yeah,
And anyway, and so at the time, I was like, and then when you get not guilty again, I was like, all right, I still think he get away, quote unquote, because like, well, Michael's still real weird, but it had too much smoke, it had too much smoke and it had no fire now. That usual rule of thumb now.
yeah,
And I, for years, was still on the camp of, because you hear about Joe Jackson and Joe Jackson treating him like shit, and he grew up real, like, let's admit it, Michael has been very traumatized as a child. All of the Jackson 5 has. All the
yes,
Jackson
yes.
clan has. Joe Jackson is just the worst. Let's just admit that. But you think because Michael, and let's not doubt it, Michael Jackson is a genius. And, that horrible cocktail of him being a genius, Joe Jackson's abuse, and his religiosity, because Michael grew up to be a Jehovah's Witness. I'm like, yeah, no shit. Like, when I hear you, oh, Michael's a Jehovah's Witness, yeah, no shit, you'll be like, have a bunch of mental issue problems. They admit that. Throwing Jehovah's Witness people under the bus, but Sorry, all this
Yeah,
shit
yeah,
real
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yes, you did. How could you?
Right. Anyway, and I was still when he died. Okay, I'll say this. Remember Dave Chappelle have a bit about Michael, about every time some Michael shit going down, it's always be to distract the public from some real geopolitical news thing going down now.
Yes.
It's always the government talking to Michael. That was the conspiracy theory joke now. And when Michael died, the day Michael died, you know what was going on exactly at the same time? The Green Revolution in Iran. And that just
Wow. Okay.
pull away all the oxygen in the room for that, because all the world was paying attention to Iran. And I was following that shit. And I was like, yeah, we could actually, suss out Iran bullshit now. And Michael dead. And I was like, fuck Michael Jackson, Dread. Like, there's the last you could do to deflect from this, and so on and
Dude,
so forth.
as as
And
as you say, Michael Jackson dead, right, for a bit. Just sorry to cut you. I will never forget, right? It was a Tuesday. Yes, I have that kind of elephant type of memory, right? It's a Tuesday, Tuesday evening, report come out, Michael Jackson in a coma. Well, let's check up and see what's up with him. And then
you
the
know,
news came out, he dead. I never forget the internet, right? And this is
yeah,
when I now started getting into Facebook, came to a screeching
yeah,
halt.
yeah,
Every
Facebook and Twitter.
web page took long to load.
Yeah,
Everybody was like typing up Michael Jackson,
yeah,
going on YouTube looking for stuff. Rest in peace, Michael Jackson, all those stuff they would put up on Facebook. People lost their minds, right? Like I remember in Trinidad itself, some nightclub in Port of Spain had some Michael Jackson tributes. So it was like who could dress the best like him and who could do the moonwalk best like him.
yeah,
But
yeah.
also, this last thing I want to mention before we get back to what you're saying. This was around the time where he was working on his final tour. It was the final tour
Yeah,
he was going to do
right.
before he officially retires at age 50, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that didn't come to pass. And then, oh gosh, I forget the choreographer's name. Um, I forget his name, right? But I know he worked on High School Musical and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
He was the one who helped out with the documentary. I think he directed as well. So they put out "This Is It," right? Michael Jackson's "This Is It." I think it was September of 2009. I remember the proceeds for that was supposed to go to the some foundation that he had, but in Trinidad it didn't matter. It didn't matter, right? So it was just in cinema. It was supposed to be out for a week. I remember
Right.
watching that, and yeah, I kind of really did enjoy and love the show. You know what I mean? Because it was just him. It basically wasn't the concert itself, but it was just like a rehearsal session. But showing the
Right.
passion and drive and talent that he still had
Right.
at that
The energy
age,
of
it was
Michael
just so
Jackson.
amazing. You know what I mean? And just seeing all the backup dancers, like, oh my God, Michael Jackson, he's such a genius, and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, one last thing: the "I Can't Stop Loving You" segment, best moment in the whole movie. I love that song.
Right.
I love that segment. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and so Michael now, I still was always in the camp of Michael most likely probably did it because he could have, he's a weird dude, he always do this thing and so on and so on. So he still put him in our mindset. And I never think about it, and then he died and so on and so on. Then eventually I saw a video on the internet. Now here's the thing. Again, in the court of law, good lawyers could do so and so to get you off, blah blah blah. And I thought it was one thing I thought was always weird about Michael Jackson's case is like, okay, if it had so much thing against him, right? Why does that these prosecutors have to be some of the worst prosecutors in the world? Because I started sitting down and going through the case myself. Okay, I could find already those information by then now.
Right.
And by the time this is around 2012 or 13, this is when all the deposition stuff could be out publicly. So OJ's
Right.
case was out by now. This first and second case for Michael Jackson came out by now, and I was like, wow, the prosecution is either there is no good case, or the prosecution is some of the dumbest prosecution ever. And I rather take the former. I was like, wait, they actually got some really, really smart lawyers coming against Michael. So what happened? And then it's like, well, yeah, and then when they started to check all of the civil suits, all of those people just make a set of cases suing Michael, and Michael had libel against them. And he won. So it's like, wait, usually with stuff like OJ lost his civil case. R. Kelly, like other big stars, is lose their civil case around that now. Usually when that's the kind of the sign that, you get away in the criminal court, so you ain't going to jail, but we still know you do some bullshit. And Michael was largely pretty clean for most of this. And then the one big incriminating thing with Michael was, well, he settled. But I was like, no, it have good reason to settle and not go to a case because, we know why. And I wasn't thinking about this thing, but I started to say, well, it's quite possible that Michael could be either just, again, the best lawyers ever, or he could probably be innocent. Until I saw a video by someone who is incredibly controversial, but the guy like made, in my opinion, still to this day, probably one of the best defenses for Michael Jackson online. And that kind of convinced me, because this guy did a ton of great research, in my opinion, about why it is that people go after Michael Jackson, why, especially Sony's relationship with Michael Jackson, the amount of enemies Michael Jackson make in the music industry. And then there's this really nebulous situation involving pedophilia, that real pedophiles make enemy of Michael Jackson. But that's more the conspiracy theory laden area of that argument. Although the guy has a lot of actual links and evidence against him when it comes to pedophilia. With all of that said, I thought this documentary was going to bring some new information to the table, and the documentary actually doesn't do that at all. All right? It just has a bunch of anecdotes. That's it. Like, if you want to take anecdotes seriously, fine. But I thought hard evidence would have been the thing. And when you think about it, it brings nothing new to the table. Like, virtually nothing. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's like, wait, this is a brand new idea. Because the only thing that was kind of interesting was the ring.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And from what I understand,
this was a ring that it was Wade, right? Yes, Wade had the ring, yeah.
Okay. So the thing is, here's the thing. From the time I watched the documentary till now, two pieces of interesting information come out. One slightly against Michael, and then another one that just totally, to me, eviscerates the documentary. The first is apparently Corey Feldman, who is a big defender of Michael, has come out in an interview saying, now the interview says he can no longer defend Michael. Not to say he thinks Michael is guilty, but he says, all right, he says that Michael didn't do him anything, and he has been molested by other pedophiles. So he thinks Michael Jackson is not one of those people because he never molested him, but it's still possible. And he's admitting that it's at least still possible that Michael has offended him. That slightly throws back Michael a little bit. But then the same guy who does the video, he made a second and third part basically clearing all of the things about the documentary, and that's totally, like, in my opinion, eviscerating the situation. And when Wade Robson decided to, like, one of the biggest damning parts about Wade Robson is when Wade Robson decided to come out officially went against that, it was just to get away from the Purger timing, because I think the Purger was 7 years in timing.
Right.
And it's like, wow, you could have do this too. So it's really unclear. And then I was just so disappointed in the documentary itself. Oh, and another piece of information. When the Jackson estate made the point about against the documentary, and they had to pull some stuff that was like straight up outright lies, the documentary is no longer 4 hours in the UK run of the documentary. Right? The documentary is now 3
shorter.
hours. Yes, because they had to cut shit out. They had to cut shit out. Yes, it's 3 hours and 15 minutes. I was like, oh, that is a big problem. Yeah, so here's the thing.
That's crazy, though.
This is the part where I will not just leave away my quote-unquote information part of it. Listen, the guy is a big conservative. Well, he's a kind of centrist right-winger type. He's a Trump supporter. All of that stuff. With that said, in my opinion, the videos, he has a 3-part video basically defending the defense of Michael Jackson. Look up all 3, and he recent at the time of this recording, this day, he released the 3rd part of it, and to me, that just like totally destroys this documentary, in my opinion, because I will admit the documentary is just long. It could have cut a bunch of shit, just a bunch of drone shots and long pauses, and it's like, yeah, but it's just
and drone shots that they use. Like for every transition, they always have a drone shot of the ranch or of LA or of New York or whatever it is. I think it's mostly LA, not New York, but they kind of recycle those in between both sections of the doc.
Nobody really asked questions against the documentary. Like Piers Morgan is the only person who started asking documentaries about it. Again, I'm only referencing this one guy. This is a guy called Razorfist on thing. He's a kind of conservative fella. Going with that, if you don't want to take that seriously, then fine. But to me, that man was just dropping facts right through dread. And that's why I'm sorry to say it, but this documentary actually now making me more believe Michael is innocent than less. I just had to say that. This documentary is so underwhelming and unimpressive. I really thought they would have bring something new to the table, information-wise, that would change or reframe the case, and it doesn't do that at all. It doesn't even come close to doing that. Again, I have no problem. Look, Cosby, gone. Right? R. Kelly, I think, gone. But this Michael thing, Michael just still think Michael clean for this, with all of this. And the thing is that we just passed through Jussie Smollett now.
Yeah.
So that like it's like dog, sit down and at least have some evidence now. With R. Kelly and Cosby, clear evidence, right? To me, very, very clear evidence. You can understand. Like I will still put Cosby in a kind of fuzzy camp about the situation. But look, Cosby to me crossed the line. Cosby, he had to take the L. But with Michael, nah, boy. And then the worst part, what making it weird too, and this is where really raised the red flags for me with this documentary, is that people just treated it like a foregone conclusion long before you had any workable debate, and I'm not hearing any actual facts and evidence to counter the points. Right? I didn't hear that. Right? You just people just, well, fuck Michael, and they say, oh, we're going to drop his music in this part of the world, Australia, or we're going to drop his music in thing, and then Simpson say we're going to cut the episode or some bullshit like that.
Yeah. Actually pull it from circulation. A great episode, a classic episode in my opinion.
Michael Jackson episode. But my point is, look, them can do what they want. I ain't saying that that is something on its own, but at least give me the satisfaction of the case now, because it is coming across like you just drumming up emotion and feelings over facts. That is the problem. No facts, no actual evidence being put forward, in my opinion. It's just the whole thing is about this fella changed his story. That's the thing.
Right.
And the part of it that loses me, because it's like I listen and I watch this whole documentary. So I watch the American HBO version, which is full 4 hours long, a little over 4 hours.
Yeah, I watch it too.
That's the one I watch, and I wait until the last 30 minutes, and then the last 30 minutes they come to the point, well, why you change your mind? And it's like, well, I don't know. And it's like, that is so ridiculous and unsatisfying. And that is the problem with the documentary. If Dan Reed, I don't know if Dan Reed, intellectually honest, he really comes across with the few interviews I've watched with him, he comes across as very intellectually dishonest, but whatever. If it was more balanced, you would think that at least you would have tried to put Michael in a more sympathetic light as a person or whatever it is, even if you want to make the case he's still guilty. Right? And at the point that comes across, the whole thing is so one-sided and ridiculous to me, because no actual facts come forward. And it is one of those things that if you forget, if you're kind of not familiar with the case, so forget, it'll convince you. Because I've seen other people who has been skeptical about the sexual assault stuff on other people still fall for the bullshit. And like, wow, you just do no research about this stuff. You just rely on the documentary. I'd have people just jump ahead of things. All I will say is that, look, I still think Michael could be possibly guilty, but I actually switch sides slightly about this. And look, it's not like I'm not some Michael hater necessarily or Michael fan. I like some of his music. I like a lot of his tracks. He is a genius. I'm not going to put him away from that. But come on. I just find it real far-fetched that people just jump ahead of time with the judgment rather than making the case where he was exonerated for years and the FBI was following him for years and they'd never find any workably hard evidence. Look, if all of them pay off and wherever it is they make mistakes, possible. If new information come out and other people still start to blame Michael, then there's a possibility that could be the case. I still, like, if at this point Macaulay Culkin come out against him, then fine. That could really hurt Michael. If, as I say, Corey Feldman was the person who was always backing Michael, and when he didn't change his story, he just kind of reposition his case now of why does he never thing against Michael, because Michael saying Michael never abused him, and all the other people who say they see Michael abuse people like Macaulay Culkin, them get catch and get called out and were sued by Michael and still paying Michael estate to this day, right? So I just really underwhelmed by a lot of this. Look, I really think that this was just a hit job, a bad hit job, and from an emotional standpoint, I suppose it's a well-made documentary, maybe, from a talking head standpoint. But I think it is like a ridiculously low score because it's just bullshit. Too much bullshit. Watch the Reservist video. That's just my thing. If you go watch it and then tell me after all of that you'll still be impressed, then fine. But to me, that was just that third-party Reservist video just break it good. Anyway, that's me. Right.
So next film we're gonna talk about just play. But yeah, yes. Ricardo, I understand entirely where you're coming from, right? So talking about the emotional stuff for a bit, right? Now we're gonna get to my opinion, right? I don't want to stay too long on this, right? Emotionally, yes, this movie did hit me. It really did hit my heart. It's not so much about, them coming out and revealing all this stuff, right? Where it really hit me was the psychological effects afterwards, These guys, I thought that they would have kind of, like, both Wade and James would have been wrestling with his sexuality because, it's Michael, you know what I mean? It's a man, right? But they just kind of move on and eventually found women. Like, each guy found a really compatible partner. It's like, all right. It working. Okay, no problem. but they still have they still have that darkness inside of them now. So for me, the second half was when it really started to hit my heart with how these guys kind of move on from what's going on now. 'Cause remember, you're young, you don't know what's going on, you know it's wrong, but you can't really put it to words or can't really express it or really can't really put some thought into it, right? You're a kid, you know, it's some new thing, you're not too sure why or how that sorry, not how why it's happening there.
Right.
And there's the side effects of that. And well, for each segment, sorry, for each part, they always end with, there's this child abuse hotline kind of thing there. So they were well playing it on the whole child abuse thing there, and really how victims of child abuse, from early, how it affects their lives now. So you're playing it on that angle now. And then, like compared to something like say Surviving R. Kelly, which well
Right.
that film itself, when it ended, I was pissed off there. I was real angry because of just all the kind of stuff that he was doing and how he was masking it with the superstar persona and the music and all that kind of stuff, right? In
Right.
this
Right.
case, I actually felt sad. Um, not so much, well, for Michael as well too, because of his upbringing and how it may or may not, we can't really say, can't really finalize for sure, but may or may not have affected his life going forward up to his death, and also how it kind of how it affected the lives of these two kids
Yeah.
who are men now, right? But then is when they touch on Wade's family and what they went through, and not to spoil anything, but basically the family just kind of broke apart because of what
Pretty
went
much.
down.
Yeah.
And mostly blame went on the mother as well.
Right.
And it's just those moments that really hit me. You know what I mean? From an emotional standpoint, right? So I was more looking at it as this is the side effects of what these kids went through, right? And how it affect their lives going forward, and how it will affect their lives going forward, right? Um, so as far as like the talking heads go, yes, I mean they put together well enough and all that kind of stuff. Yes, they do go into graphic detail about the stuff that MJ did, quote unquote. Some really really graphic stuff as well. So yes, not for the faint of heart at all, right? I, compared to Survivor R. Kelly, they didn't I felt it. Well, they didn't demonize Michael, right? They didn't
Right.
use
Right.
certain type of imagery to make him look evil. Even though I saw an article where like they kind of resurfaced this meme, this classic shot of MJ eating the popcorn and the theater from the opening of the Thriller video. Now, you know what I mean?
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah, some kind of shit with that. I'm not too sure, but yeah. So I like that they didn't really demonize him, right? They just kind of made you feel kind of sorry in a way. But so overall for me, it put me in a real tough position, right? Because at the end of it, I wasn't like, all right, fuck Michael Jackson. I gotta delete Thriller and Bad. And I mean, I actually have our original copy of The Wall, right? Because Spike Lee did a documentary of the making of The Wall. I forgot the
Right.
name of it, but you should definitely check it out. It's a great doc, right? So I'm not gonna throw away that just because of this documentary, right? Um, so as far as just the emotional gut punch of it goes, yes, it is a very powerful film, right? But at the same time, because there's no hard evidence to support it, because I mean, at the end of the day, right? Yes, Michael Jackson is dead, right? You know what I mean? But it's Michael freaking Jackson. You can't just have two guys come and family members say all these things and just leave it as that, and just
Right.
almost in a way you're just telling the audience, well, these two
Right.
guys kind of came out and said that's what
Right.
happened, so
Right. So with that
take that
said,
as it
that,
is, right? Take that as
that
it is
said,
because they said it.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's
right.
it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. With that said, the big blowback now is from Taj Jackson. This is Michael's nephew, right?
Right.
Um, Taj Jackson now is making the case now. It's like, all right, look, time to blow back against these fellas, and you're going to see the Jackson estate, from what I understand, already sued the HBO, and HBO has a time limit to address something with the documentary now. Because it's like, yeah, it's just straight slander now. What's going on now? And then Taj Jackson himself, I think, is making his own documentary.
Oh, okay.
Against things, and I think they're raising money or something like that for that.
All right.
Um,
I
so
wonder,
yeah,
I wonder if you might see it on Netflix or some sort of Hulu.
don't,
There's like that Fire Festival doc that we reviewed, something like that now.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a GoFundMe, I think. It's a GoFundMe, I think. And addressing, Michael's situation and all that drama. So it building up. I mean, this thing, the problem is that I think the mistake is that, when you're making something, you don't be presumptive in terms of the foundation to it, right? Do not be presumptive for the foundation. You see, that is your problem. They decided to just jump ahead and act as if, well, we could just treat this as is, and well, all right, we immediately could cancel Michael, and because they time it with Me Too and cancel culture and all that stuff,
Yeah,
you're on trouble. And again, Justice Smollett, we pass you Justice Smollett, just being preemptive about the conclusions that this is what killed this now.
Yeah.
So that's what this whole thing have me in a position that say, wait, boy, they kind of fucked this up too.
Yeah. Well, let's just continue and more or less wrap up, right? I do agree with you. It didn't need to be 4 hours. I felt that like the first half actually was a little on the slow end but as soon you're kind of wondering, okay, well, all right, there's these kids, they meet Michael, okay, cool, into the story. I still find there's more Wade than James in my opinion. Like it was more about Wade, but you just needed somebody else to kind of even things out, because it could have just been about Wade. I thought that Wade's story impacted me more, way more than James. But from James' perspective, I kind of understand because in his case, he was just a guy who did not really look up to Michael at all. He was just like, hey, there's a contest, so I'm gonna join up for that. There's even one scene where they show a little interview that that Michael MJ's team did, you know what I mean? And they literally had to put posters of Michael on the man bedroom walls and stuff because he wasn't into that, you know.
I will someone concede that Jimmy Safechuck's story is a little clearer and better than Wade's. Wade's is a mess, but Jimmy's has less holes. There's a lot of holes, but much less holes. I'll put it like that.
I'll agree, yeah. But Wade has a lot of stuff going on though, and there are some things that kind of don't really fit well enough now. It's just like, well, he just make a decision, he hide it, okay, because he loved Michael, and that's the excuse. He loves him so much. All right, so why after his death now do you just kind of up and decide? Because that's how the movie kind of frames it. Like you just can't take it anymore, and it's just too much, and it's affecting the family. So now I must tell the world this thing that I could have said years ago. And and as you see, there's this little, well, all right, so there's this little clip, few clips actually, with some YouTubers calling them out. One guy saying, fuck Wade Robson, fuck it, all that kind of stuff there, you know what I mean? And, that's the big argument that a lot of people will make, like, why are you waiting till now to see this? You know what I mean? Why now, 10 years after his death, you finally come and say, all right, the world needs to hear about what it is he really did, you know what I mean? And the excuse is, well, it's love, and the slant is, it's child abuse, and this is the side effects of it, how confused your mind is and all that kind of stuff. So not to say that the show is manipulative and it's supposed to make you hate Michael. I didn't really come out of it feeling as if I should hate Michael or if viewers will hate Michael after they see it. But I know some people will just easily buy into it and be like, yes, Michael is evil and look at what he did and all these gross graphic things that he did to these little boys. You know what I mean? So I should just not listen to his music again. I actually know a couple of people, for example, who don't want to watch the show at all because it might kind of make them, like I did, kind of think twice about this icon of music now. You know what I mean? It might kind of just tarnish their viewpoint of him, and I don't blame them.
No, for me, in the end of the day, evidence matters, right? Especially for shit like this, where you have.
Yeah, I agreed.
Look, Michael dead, but it's not like it don't matter, right? Let's admit that. You still have the Jackson family after with all the money and all the things the food play. If radio or whatever it is want to cancel Michael, them could do what the fuck they want. They could do that. My point is that this thing did not bring anything new to the table. That is my point. Right. I'm not so underwhelmed from that standpoint. And it's like, they just decide to rely on the quote unquote court of public opinion now. So just come across like bullshit to me. And I have a huge problem with that shit. You see, when you do that where you just want to throw somebody on a bus and it's like you just use crowd rage, I have a massive problem with that. Even if it's something that the person did, but not that big of a deal, but you need to hang somebody now. And it's really come across like that with this. Like, all right, Michael is the last thing, it's keep coming up perennially. And the thing is, again, either Michael innocent or you are the dumbest fucking people on the planet when it comes to making the case against him. because it has so much holes in the story. Right.
So just before we get to reading, right? For me, yes, while emotionally it does sting, right? It really does leave you feeling kind of like, for me, I didn't feel sickened or terrified or anything like that. Disturbed, yes, but more like just because of how, well, at least according to Wade and James, that those sexual encounters with Michael, and how they just kept it a secret from their families for years, how it eventually just affected them and their families and friends. So
Right.
to me, that's why I took out of it, right? I didn't come out of it saying, okay, now I hate Michael because of what it is he did. Because I think the problem for me with the movie, which is why I can't really say it's a great movie overall, compared to say stuff like OJ in America, so one of the
Right.
best movies I've seen this decade, hands down.
Right.
Um, it's just from the perspective of these two guys and their loved ones, and that's it. That's all we have going with it. There's no child psychologist, like say, or there's no psychologist, sorry, like say in
That's, that's fine.
Surviving R. Kelly. There's
No,
no
but
police reports. It's just news reports, archival footage, and talking heads, and that's all we have going with it. I just done
that's
in
the
this
great.
historical timeline that we have to kind of believe, well, yes, this is how it kind of happened from here to here to here. So yes, emotionally, yes, it works, but it needs more, because it's not just, oh well, this random guy just did these horrible things to these kids. It's Michael Jackson. You had to give me
No,
more than that. You
that's
had to expect, well, last thing I'll say, you had to expect the audience, like, if you really want to sell the fact that MJ really did these things, Red, not, you can't just rely solely on talking it. You had to give us more than that, and
no,
within that
even
4 hour runtime, you could have add
no,
more to it.
exactly. But even with the four with that, Wade's therapist didn't show up in the documentary. Like you would have think, all right, well, how Wade's therapist decide to get him out of that space to say why it changed your mind? Because that's the big
Right.
sticking point here.
That's a
Why
good
would you
point,
change
actually.
your mind?
Yeah.
Why would you change your mind? Again, nothing. Bupkis. I was like, that's the thing is the red flags, right? And I have a big problem with this manipulation. And oh god, Oprah to, jump and hype up the bullshit. So Oprah just lose
Yeah.
me with bullshit like this. Oh god. Everything is about how you feel and feelings and the kind of thing. I was like, yeah, but facts though. Where the
That's the
facts?
thing. Facts. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not
Um
saying that what these guys are seeing are lies, but you have to give us facts. You can't just
gotta give
rely on talking heads. This is not an episode of 60 Minutes where just an interview and, oh, well, that's it. No, it's not a news report.
yeah,
It's not a news report. Like, come on, give us more than that. So,
yeah,
rating wise, well, I know yours is gonna be lower than mine. Um,
right.
I still say at the end of the day, like, for me, while I really wanted to love this film, and because it did really affect me emotionally, still when it comes down, like when the smoke clears and you're just left with just words, you know what I mean, as opposed to just raw facts that we could really dig in deep and really figure out for
Right.
ourselves if it really happened or not. And it's like non-existent now, it's really hard for me to just kind of buy 100% into this, right? But I
Right.
would still give this a very light 3.5 out of 5, though. Just
Okay.
just mainly because I want people to see this movie for themselves and make the judgment. If you don't want to see it, if you don't want Michael Jackson's name or image or persona to be tarnished for you, then I would strongly advise not to watch it. But if you're curious, I still say give it a look. Go into this with an open mind, though, and I mean, whatever you get out of it, that's fine. But once again, if you just like the naive type that just watch a show and they say, okay, well, this show told me forwards that Michael Jackson is evil. All right, cool. I'm not gonna support that guy ever again. Then
Right.
I guess that's you. But if you just go in with your brain intact, yeah, you're gonna come out kind of wanting more justification of what's being said, in my opinion.
Yeah,
But
and
still, the
here's
three and
why.
a half is like just a
Right.
very like a cautionary rating. Though, just go in at your own risk. Whatever you get out of it is what you get out of it, right? That's
Here's
my
why.
last words.
Here's the biggest sin of this documentary is that it didn't really bring anything new to the table.
Right,
Right? Is
understood.
what
Yeah,
if it was still now the movie, it could have been still like it could have bring a bunch of news information to the table, quote unquote, and still be bullshit. And I won't mind that because at least it reframes the discussion so you have something to talk about. But it actually has nothing to talk about. There's nothing, no real legwork had to go into debunking this. And that's the biggest insult. So the whole thing relies entirely on in my opinion, emotional manipulation. In my opinion.
Right.
And that's where it lose a lot of points for me. Is that all right? If it was, and look, I think from an emotional standpoint, like if you're completely ignorant of this case, then from an emotional standpoint, it could work for you, and I think it gets the few points there. Because yes, it is. I think it's well made in terms of the interview style approach and whatnot, right? But it's too long, too bloated, doesn't bring anything. A lot of fluff, a lot of fat that had to get cut, and then in the end of the day, it's still a bullshit narrative. So yeah, I had to give this a 3 out of 10. It's well made. Like that's it. But everybody who just all these people, and look, I just had to straight up say it. All these people who jump ahead of that shit, yeah, they just jump ahead just to say, look, we on top of this now. Look, Michael, I get to show, have a term virtue signal. That's basically what it is though. Look, I jump, jumping against the idiot man now. The evil man. Look at me. Like, facts though. Like I waited for that. I just so underwhelmed from that in that sense now.
Right.
Yeah, 2 out of 10. Sorry, I kind of was pissed off with this one because of how much it kind of just wasted my time from me. I really thought it was a debate going forward now. There's nothing to have here. It's just Dan Reed is a bullshitter. Sorry.
And last thing that I want to say though, the final set of images that you see during the closing credits of the second part of the film, kind of sums up the movie though, where it's just like, yes, these two people didn't kind of realize that Michael was not the person who they thought he was. So let's just do this thing and make you really feel like, yes, he is evil and he is the enemy now. You know what I mean? But it's just so simplistic, but it doesn't really say anything about who he is and doesn't really justify if what he did really did happen or not. Just like, oh, well, this thing happened, so you should do the same thing. I really don't want to spoil what happens in the end, but it's just so blatantly simple now. Just like, yeah, well, at the end of the day, well, this is what happened, so yes, let's all hate on Michael, but come on, you gotta give us more than that, man. You know what I mean? It's just too cut and dry.
Yeah, but to me, I don't know. This whole thing just says something about the media, Dread, because like, wait, nobody asked any kind of questions, Dread. Nobody bring up any kind of classic problems with it. And I listen, if this thing continue and people like the quote unquote canceling of Michael continues to happen, then you're gonna see a big blowback, a huge blowback in our. I just noticed two sides to this. I noticed the media official mainstream types stick on one side for it, and then I noticed just average person just totally like just reject this narrative and thing. And then again, another thing that kind of pisses people off is this again, another piece of presumption of, oh well, the only reason you defended Michael because you like his music. If you're doing that shit and you start the conversation with that shit, sorry, fuck you. You're kind of an asshole and you're a little ridiculous because it's about the facts. And that is my thing with it. I don't consider myself any kind of big Michael fan, and I just getting bullshit from somebody now. It's that kind of weird thing like you're fighting on a small thing that you think you should just give up a simple explanation to, and then the person just bullshitting you, and that is what pissing you off.
Yeah.
It's that. That's how this feeling to me now. It's like, well, dude, I'm not hearing anything, dude. It's just echo chambers and nonsense now. However, I just say, look up the Michael Jackson rebuttal by Razorfist. He has 3 parts to it. In my opinion, this dude like nails exactly the problem with his documentary and all the issues involving Michael Jackson's accusers. Not saying that Michael like absolutely innocent and is a perfect thing, but it's real bullshit that coming against Michael. That's all I'll say.
I'll give it a look. Hopefully this thing will end by the time Game of Thrones starts next month. Well, middle of next month. So HBO have a few years ahead of them with this show, but I guess people will hopefully forget by the time Game of Thrones started. Like, what? Even what?